And the Social Democratic Party, SDP, is alleging that state resources are being used for the campaign of the presidential campaign of the All Progressives Congress. Addressing journalists in Abuja, the Director General of the SDP presidential campaign, Solomon Dalong, alleges that aircraft of government and other assets are being used to advance the political ambition of the APC candidate. He said the gesture should be extended to other presidential candidates in the interest of fairness and justice.
If political parties in government will hold rallies, and such rallies are characterized by massive violence, then certainly the capacity of that political party and the government to nurture this transition is called to question. The use of government assets to patronize and promote a candidate by the party in government is indeed an abuse of power and an attempt to instigate and trigger discontent among competing candidates. I'm yet to be convinced as the rationale behind the deployment of state assets like aircraft and even other paraphernalia of power to promote the candidate of the APC.
Well, a host of other issues were discussed at that press conference. Well, joining us now is the presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party, Adewale Adebayo. Good to see you on Newsnight tonight.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, it's quite interesting, the reservations that you've raised, or concerns, better still, about the use of state resources, to campaign. Who exactly is, guilty of this? I mean, do you have anybody in mind that you have seen? What exactly is the basis of this allegation? And which of the state resources would you like to
be extended,
to other politicians like yourself?
I would rather none. I would rather that state resources be used for the public, not for politicians. I went to Bayelsa State, I went to Delta State, I've gone to Adamawa State, I've gone to many far-flung areas. When I need to use the boat, I use the boat. When I used to walk, I walk. When I need to drive, I drive. So I think that if the members of the public can go to those places, if you're a politician, you should be able to go there. I went to Forcados the other time, I was 4 hours on the sea. So I think that's what you should experience. And this issue is illegal. What's more important, that it's illegal to appropriate public resources for private purposes. Even in an SDP government, if you come on a private visit as a family member, you will not eat government food because that's not proper. So that's what we need to remind Nigerians. It's not a political attack. It's just a reminder that we are running a lawful republic, and people should not start breaking law before they come in at all.
Even in the White House, visitors, are entertained.
There's a budget for entertainment.
There's a budget for it.
If you come on official purpose, not if you come for something else. I don't think that if you are a member of a Democratic Party and you don't want to do a rally, Biden is going to use Air Force One to carry you. Not at all. And in many occasions, if you look at the accounting, I lived in America for many years where I practiced law, they count hours. If you take someone who is not there to perform a function for the public, they will pay. So, and in many instances, even occupants of the White House pay for their food. Even the president and his family pay for certain food if they're not doing public function. So you can investigate that. The key issue is to remind people in government that the crimes being committed in government already are hurting the country. And if a new set is coming and they're already learning how to be unlawful, then we are in for some trouble. So neither the SDP nor any other political party is entitled to use state assets. Even when we used stadia, we used halls, we pay for it. We did our convention at ICC in Abuja, we paid. We even paid for Eagle Square before they said we couldn't use it. So it's just the right thing to do. Yeah.
Right, but beyond stating the obvious fact that it is the right and the moral thing to do. I know that the Transition Monitoring Group early in the year had raised an alarm about the use of public assets or public facilities by politicians, especially those that are holding office right now. But beyond just raising this concern, what exactly do you plan to do to ensure that what you say is illegal is enforced?
Well, it is, first, we are running a campaign, and we are not like trying to run litigation processes. So we make a contrast of, we are complying with the Constitution of Nigeria, we are a law-abiding party, we are managing our campaign in a lawful way. So that's one reason for you to look in our direction. That's number one. Number two, to warn those who are there, who are doing it, because many of them maybe they think it's a tradition, it's an entitlement. This is a season of, it's my turn. So they think it's their turn to use the aircraft, it's their turn to use public assets. We remind them. And then we also warn the public to watch out for these things. And then the media, of course, not to sleep on duty. Because when you cover a rally and you see a government vehicle being brought there, carrying party people with whether it's state government or federal government, the media ought to question them, why is the government vehicle here? And things like that. So if we don't raise this issue, then the public might not know that this is how it should be. And it's part of the contrast with setting ourselves aside from the horde that will not obey the law and will not keep to ethics.
Okay, very well said. Let's look at INEC's fresh guidelines now for political parties. You cannot spend more than 50 million naira, maybe at any rally. Two, you need to write to the Commissioner of Police in whatever state you want to, have your rally. And you have to copy INEC, Yeah. Do you feel stifled, with this new or fresh guidelines?
Well, that's what we've been doing already. So maybe INEC is just, because INEC has had seminars earlier. In the past, even up to the present time, our attitude is never to respect institutions, to assume that they're just saying it. They're not going to mean it. Right. And in the past, INEC had been known to be just saying things that they will never enforce. So we just are in the habit of obedience generally as SDP. So you would see our rally, they tend to keep to that. We'll do all our writing. So, but it's for INEC now and law enforcement to do something about it. But I think basically, if you look at activity-based costing, if you cost some of the activities, you will see that in 1, 2, or 3, or 4 rallies, many of the political parties have exceeded the official limit for spending. But the one thing about law, there are 2 steps in law enforcement. One is the recognition that being lawful is okay. The next is sanction. So let's spend the next few weeks talking about the legality of it, but I think immediately after, sanctions should follow. But there are also, on the other side, people who think that they're being stifled. I don't think so. Running a very expensive election is not in the interest of democracy. It doesn't matter whether you have the money. I've had people ask me, why don't you spend more? Maybe I should, but I shouldn't, because the real thing is that the influence of personal money on politics should be limited, so that other factors, having money is one advantage, but there are other advantages that you have to put together.
And donations should be limited too.
Donations should be limited because
and they should be reported according to
yes, particularly those coming from abroad.
Some donations are nefarious. There are certain, I said it before, there are certain donations that people invite us to come and take. We already know that it has a lot of strings attached, because nobody should love you that much. You're not the only one in the country. So you have churches to donate to, you have orphanages to donate to. So if I'm running for an office where the power is going to be enormous, and you are getting too generous to me, you're offering me aircraft, you're offering me all of these things, which you never offered to me last year when I was in my private life, I have a feeling that you're trying to put some strings there so that when next I see you, then you can dictate monetary policy for me, you can dictate trade policy for me. So, and what of other Nigerians who have ideas, who have things? So I think we should try to moderate things. That's the whole idea. Because it's called a democracy, and equality is part of it. So people who have advantage in terms of having made money, I think they should not have monopoly of it because of political participation, because in that case, it will not be a democracy anymore.
All right, let me ask you a two-pronged question. It would be nice to hear from you what your campaign rallies have been about, what has your messaging been, and what kind of response or feedback are you getting from Nigerians, as you go about campaigning, and telling them what exactly you're bringing to bear.
I've seen a rally in Adamawa, you've seen the one in Oyo, you've seen a number of other ones. The whole idea is to let people know that the idea of farewell to poverty is not fairy tale, and that the idea that there is poverty at all is an embarrassment, and that you can tackle these issues. How? So, how is this? We have enough resources, without doubt, to be able to have nutrition for everyone in the country, if we focus on that. We have enough money to be able to deal with the issue of primary health care. I went to Adamawa State, and they were showing me places where people were still having blindness from drinking water. So you can't tell me that we can't kick that. And what we needed to do was just to treat the water twice a year. But there's no money. And in few places where it's been done, it's WHO or some donor agencies sending little money, the kind of money that the governor will blow away a security vote in 1 month, is the money that's making a difference. So what we just want to do is to see that we have priority. Our problem is not that we don't have money.
Okay.
It's that we have the wrong priority. So this is the message we're giving to the people. The how is already available to us. For example, you can run schools. It's not that complex. Missionary run schools with no big money, and they produce fantastic graduates. So it's possible to run schools well.
But you do appreciate the fact that it's one thing to see the problem from the outside, but when you get in there, you're amazed how ginormous, the issues are. You actually say to yourself, look, you have actually underrated the enormity of the challenges. But I need to ask you this.
That's the excuse they give, though. It doesn't work.
On the reference you made earlier, I'm wondering, with the people that have helped you, in the course of your campaign and all of that, and you become president, how are you going to do your appointments?
How are you going to
compensate them?
If you compensate them, you are committing a crime. Right. You are not supposed to use the office to compensate people. Because when you are sick and you are going to the hospital, you don't look for a doctor who donated money to you last year. If you have a cardiac problem, you go to cardiologist. So the idea is that when you take that office, you use the best people that the country has, because human resources are the most senior resources that the country has. So you want to make sure that when you want to drink water, you don't use a fork to pick the water, you use a cup. So what they are doing now is like a kind of money doubling, where you know that if I invest in agriculture, it takes like 3 or 4 years. But if I invest in politics, if I call someone who's running for president, running for governor, and I give them some money, I can choose a commissioner, I can choose a minister. That is a form of crime. What we need to do is to see that if people come into your government, like now I'm interacting with people, I'm recognizing talents. I'm also losing friends in the process. I'm also seeing people that I thought were reasonable, accommodating. In the course of operation, you see them that maybe they don't have the capacity. So you are, as a good commander-in-chief, as a good chief executive, you are looking at people's capacity during the interaction. I'm also meeting ordinary people. Like when I went to Bayelsa, I met one gentleman called Sipi, who on his own built a bridge that had collapsed. He used scaffolding and plank. He's not my friend now. We chat all the time because I could see that this one is a community leader if he could do this with no money from the government. So that is the kind of thing I discovered along the way. The idea is that you are using what Nigeria has to make Nigeria better. You are not supposed to appropriate the resources of Nigeria and use it to compensate people just because they voted for you.
Right. That's a good place to be.
Absolutely. And he's dropped the anchor rightly. Thanks so very much. That's the candidate of the Social Democratic Party.
Prince Adewale Adebayo.
Adebayo.
Thank you so much. It's been nice having you on the show again.
Pleasure.